Today I have Kyle and Laurie here with me, and Kyle works as a marketing director at an architectural firm, and Laurie previously worked in marketing for restaurants, but in the last 3 years or so has been able to become a stay-at-home mom. They live in Utah and make a combined income of 70 to 80K, and they have been in the program for 3 months. So, Laurie, take me back to what managing finances looked like before Sensei, before
For that,
3 months ago.
yeah.
If you can go back that long ago, what was it like?
So we've actually been in the program for a year, over a year now.
Oh, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad we
I just
we
sorry,
clarified
wanted to
that.
clarify that real quick.
Yes. Okay, great.
So before we started the program, right, over a year ago,
Yeah.
um, I would say like even before we were starting looking for financial coaching, beforehand, I felt like we used to have like our finances put together and we had a whole bunch of like life changes. And then like suddenly something that like came really easy to us to like talk about and figure out like how to like a lot of like emotional knots and like just I think a dynamic shift, at least in my mind, of how our finances used to like work. And so and I think we were just kind of like cruising along trying to like make financial progress, but we were just hitting a wall a lot of the
Mm.
time. And then Kyle had been like you would follow them for like about a year on LinkedIn, right?
So yeah, we kind of just I started to see your content and it started to resonate with me, and then I started sharing things with Laurie, and eventually we just recognized that if we were gonna be able to get through these roadblocks we were having, then a financial coach would be a really good idea. So it just kind of clicked, and
Yeah. I will say too, there was like one of our really good friends and like friends that we look up to also like went through your program, and I feel like that just like added like validity and authenticity to your
Yes.
coaching, right? Because I think because of like influencers and all this stuff, there's like always people out there saying like, hey, if you do this thing or join our program or use my affiliate code, like your life will be so much easier. So to
Yes.
have people that we like love and respect go through it like really added like a lot of authority. I don't know what the right word is. Like,
yeah, it definitely increased our confidence. But also, I think just seeing what you share online, and how it was distinct and different from a lot of other like financial gurus that are out there, kind of saying a lot of stuff that might sound good but ultimately isn't that helpful or applicable. Like I would see a lot of stuff that would just stress me out versus what I was seeing from Sensei actually gave me a lot more like hope and confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was a good indication of what being in the program would be like.
I will say
Yes.
too, I feel like talking to you, Kay, I feel like I'm talking to celebrity because I feel like I'm just used to seeing you on my feed. And I'm like, oh, like you're talking back to me now. Like this is
Yeah.
wild to me.
Not a talking head.
Yeah.
Yes. I know you probably know way more about my life than I even want to think about, but yes. Well, thank you. I'm honored. But yes, thank you for sharing that. I love thinking about that. It sounds like finances weren't terrible before, and then you kind of started hitting these roadblocks, and you're like, wait, maybe there is something more out there. And then you're seeing stuff on LinkedIn, you're talking to these friends, and now it's like, okay, maybe there is something else and ready to actually take that action. So, what were some of those roadblocks initially?
I
Dive
think
in.
that like prior to the pandemic, we were able to just knock out all of our financial goals. Like after college, we both got jobs. We paid off all of our student debt really quickly, started saving up for a house. We were able to buy a house. We actually closed on it during the pandemic, which was a unique experience.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
moved in, when there was like a lot of um,
Uncertainty.
uncertainty, and there was like gathering limits in place and state mandated stuff. So it was a little bit nerve wracking to go through that process, and then we were also expecting our first baby, and she was born. And I think after that, like just all the associated expenses and costs with
Mm.
having a home, having a child, and it all just kind of hit us at the same time as like record inflation, and all of our bills
Going
just
down to one
going up.
income,
Yeah,
right? At the same
we went down
time.
to one income, so we went from feeling like we had so much, like more than enough, to like feeling like we were just scraping by.
Mm.
And so like we had savings, and but we just weren't really saving much month to month. And some months, we'd overspend more than we were bringing in, and other months we would make a little bit more. But overall, like a couple of years went by, and we just felt like no progress was being made.
Mm-hmm.
We were thinking about like it's time for us that we want to have another kid, but we just didn't know how we were going to make that happen because we knew how expensive it would be, and we didn't
Right.
know how to get there. So that was the biggest. I mean,
Yeah, I think for me there was just like all these emotions tied up into finances. Like, I mean, now we have like a weekly finance meeting through the PFA program, right? And like that is like so much more of a like positive experience for us. But beforehand, we'd like on a weekend, Kyle would be like, "Hey, like we need to sit down and talk about things." And as the conversation progressed, I would start feeling like a caged animal. Like, hey, like when Kyle would say, like, "Hey, we need to make some changes or we need to do things," like because I was no longer like contributing financially as much
Mm-hmm.
and becoming like the sole, like not the sole, but the main spender, right? Like all I
she
spend
made
a lot.
a lot of our
I
purchases.
made a lot of the purchases, right? Because I was at home more and like had the time to do it. When we'd sit down and he's like, all right, we need to make changes. Like I just felt like we were not that he was saying this, but like in my mind, I was translating, hey, we need to make some changes to like I'm putting my family into financial ruin.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like wasn't what he was saying, but like that's how I felt inside.
Yes.
And so we would start these conversations and then it would just like spiral down into like me crying and being like, I can't remember what I used to say, but I was like, I'm just trying my best. And like, well,
Totally.
like I would start saying like, it's your money, like you're in charge of it now. I'm like,
Yeah, just hands off. Never mind. If I can't do it right, I don't want to do it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was feeling like, well, maybe my job isn't good enough. Maybe I need to, look for another place to work or change careers. Like something's not working here. So I felt a lot of pressure that way after that.
Mm.
and then I was also just feeling really guilty too, because like the work culture where he works like fits our lifestyle so much and like the stuff they design is like something that he's really excited about, which I mean there's other things in architecture that are great, but like I was starting to feel guilty because he's like, oh, should I get a new job? I'm like, no, your job is perfect for you. And then I was like, oh, why did I become a stay-at-home mom? And like I loved my career. Like it wasn't necessarily like my whole identity, but like there was also a lot of things that aligned for me in my job. And I like made a lot of progress in a short time at the place where I was working. And so like just having all these like identity crises and just changes just made talking about finances feel like a personal attack for both of us for different reasons and
Mm.
kind of similar, but there was just a lot of
Lots of emotion.
emotions tied up into it. So yeah, it just really like I think for years.
Yeah, it was a good amount of time,
I mean, our kids are only 3 years apart, so like
maybe a year and a half or so, where we were just kind of in this limbo frustration. So,
yeah. And then because I would react poorly, Kyle was more hesitant about talking finances, and I would read
Mhm.
his like timidness as like because I don't know, like it just really was a bad
she
situation.
thought we were in probably worse shape than we were because I was just
Yes.
hesitant to talk to her about it.
Yeah,
And it was hard for me to convey like we're okay, we're not like ruined financially, but we're just not getting where we need to be.
yeah.
It was just really
Mm.
hard to assess that. And I think like going through the program, the initial stages really help you get a real pulse and a real handle on where you actually are financially. And
Mhm.
hearing it from someone other than your spouse or partner is like really helpful because you're like, okay, there's there's a balanced view and another set of eyes that can confirm what's actually happening versus just the emotional part.
Yes, kind of helps zoom out to see the data, not the drama. So you can
Yeah.
really like focus. Okay, this is where we actually are. This is our reality. Now, what do we want to do? Yes, I love that. That was going to be my next question is what made the difference? So it sounds like one thing off the bat was just that seeing where you actually are and having a third party to kind of help you see that, an outside perspective to say, hey, you're not doing so bad here. Here are some ways you can improve. Here are some changes we can make without it feeling like all those emotions just attacking. What other things would you say for kind of that launch pad for you guys?
I think just like an emotional touch point for me was like we had been so aligned on finances up until that point, and then being able to realign like where we were and be on the same page, not necessarily because of values, but just like understanding what needed to happen. Um, Kyle will probably expand on this more, but just having the financial roadmap just really helped us like laser in on what we should focus on.
Mm,
And after like putting together like the spreadsheets, whether a finance coach, like Kyle would tell me, hey, we're doing fine, but like actually breaking down the numbers, like as far as like the average American, we really are doing fine.
yes.
Right. So it was,
Yes.
I think it was important, like Kyle said, to have like a third party, like see the same thing we were seeing and like validate and also kind of be like, hey, are you guys noticing this? Like this is these numbers represent you. So that's
Yes.
cool.
Love that.
I
That's so
think
perfect.
I think generally just like as a culture, we're not very open about finances.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that are shared are just kind of like bits and pieces. And it's hard to really get a sense of where you're at or where you should be at. And there's a lot of advice that's offered without context. I
Mm-hmm.
think the roadmap is just such a great tool in helping you focus on the one thing instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to chip away at all these different various things. Like I know and understand the concept of like investing and I understand like insurance and just lots of different pieces that go into your financial strategy, taxes, lots of things you can do, but the roadmap helps you align on what you should do in the immediate future. And
Mm-hmm.
that just builds so much momentum because then we started knocking out goals that like we thought would take ages for us to do. And like our baby's evidence of that, we were able
Yes.
to get him here and pay for it, you know, in on the timeline that we wanted, which was huge.
Yes.
So
Yes. So with that, what are the numbers? So in the last year, what goals have you been able to hit and what were the like monetary amounts of those if you know them off the top of your head? Yeah.
I remember writing these down because in our last meeting with our coach, we were like, hey, we actually made an extra.
I think we made so we probably made an extra. I know for sure
Find it.
we made an extra $6,000 that we definitely wouldn't have made without the program.
Uh-huh. That's
Uh,
huge.
but then I think also we were able to prioritize and kind of when we did get unanticipated like bonuses and gifts and stuff, we were able to put that towards our goal. So we ended up
Mm-hmm.
with about 12,000 saved for our baby.
Wow. In a year.
Yeah,
That's
that was
huge.
really nice for us going from not having any extra money to spare at the end of the month to basically saving $1,000 each month.
Yes.
Goal is really helpful and like, I think, yeah, I can say with certainty that we wouldn't have got there without the program. We
Mm-hmm.
just wouldn't have taken the steps that we did and taken advantage of opportunities. Like I had the opportunity to earn some extra cash on the side, and I wouldn't have even recognized it as an opportunity to do so if that week we hadn't been on a call with our coach, racking our brains on like how can we make some extra cash, and then the opportunity just presented itself and it was the perfect opportunity and probably one of the only things that could have worked with our schedule and the demands of our life.
Mm.
So I think just having clarity on what the next step is, you're looking for it. Like you're looking for the opportunities. So when they come, you can actually do them.
Yes, 100%. And then when you do have extra money, you know exactly where it's going instead of like, do we put it to the baby? Or we also might want to do this. And what about this home renovation? Or what about
Yeah.
retirement or something? It's like,
Exactly.
well, all of that's checked. We know we're good. So this is going to the baby or whatever. So yeah, that's huge. Very huge. And then now you're saving between 700 to 1,000 every month continuously, right? That's about where you're at.
Well, yes and no.
Probably hard to know with a baby right now, right?
Yeah,
You're
we
kind of
kind
in the
of we
limbo.
kind of put the extra income generating activities on the back burner for the time
Yes.
being. But like the nice thing when we were meeting with our coach last is like, well now he's basically like, how to make that money. So when it's time,
Yes.
when the dust settles after the baby, like we know what our options are and we know what our goals are and I'm fully confident we can make it happen. So that's the caveat. Right now we're kind of in a like
Pause kind of
uh,
mode. Yeah.
but
You just had you have a 2-month-old. So yeah, I feel like
we
you're kind of
plan
in
for that.
postpartum
Yeah.
Yeah,
like bubble right now for at least 3 months is what we always say.
I will say like our flow, our extra income after everything else that we need to take care of is about like right now, just adjusting to new baby is about the same it was when we started Sensei. But like
Mm-hmm.
as far as direction, peace of mind, knowing what to do with our finances, that has completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
So even though like I think on paper, if you just like took a look at our cap budget like today and March of 2023, it
Mm-hmm.
maybe looks similar, but like we are completely different people.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah,
And you added another person.
yeah.
So even the
I am
fact
a
that you were
completely
able
different person.
to, yes, literally, even the fact that you were able to do that and not go in the red or go is a huge win too, financially, right? Adding another person to the world is definitely, like you said, a huge expense, a huge um change emotionally, physically, everything. So yes, that is huge. And then I love that of like recognizing the difference in like what you were describing. Those are those intangibles that you can't write down as much, right? You can't see like black and white. That's why these videos are so helpful to hear, this is how we actually are feeling when we have a financial check-in meeting. This is what is actually happening when I go to the grocery store and how I feel on the inside, which no one would even know. Nobody knows because no one talks about it. So they won't know that looking at you, but you guys have seen the difference and feel it in your relationship and in yourselves. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add that like when our son was born, we had a lot of medical bills coming our way. We had to get new tires for our car, which was like it feels like it's like twice as expensive as last time we got them 5 years
Yes.
ago. And normally those type of things would stress me out, like to no end. But we had the money saved for that specific purpose. So it didn't really matter that it happened right after the baby was born. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another really powerful thing with the cap budget system is you're prepared for the majority of expenses and then the unanticipated things you're working on an emergency fund for. When
Mm-hmm.
things like that hit, it's not like the timing of it isn't as big of an emotional toll.
Right. Can just be a little blip in your journey instead of a crisis. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Love that. Great. So what would you say is the number one biggest takeaway for each of you from the PFA program? If you can boil it to one.
Yeah. I'm gonna say two things.
Okay.
One, I think part of me was really hesitant to start meeting with a coach. Because I was like, we're adults, like,
Yes. Humble pill. Yeah.
like I was like, in theory, we know how to do finances. Like even when meeting with our coach, they're like, you have a lot of like really good foundation, but just having one like a guide who can kind of see like the overview and who has done it before and has helped with other people, has just like the value of having a third person outside of like your relationship to kind of mediate and be like our biggest cheerleader was so great too. I think one day it hit me. So I did like a lot of music growing up, and like if I wanted to get better, I should get like a piano teacher or vocal coach. You know, like when it comes to other things, like it makes so much sense to reach out to someone who has more experience or like has studied and wants to be a guide in that, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Kind of like
An expert in that field. Thank you. And like just building a relationship with our coach and just seeing like, again, like your post on Instagram, like, or social media, like there's so much things about Sensei that just resonate with us, like value wise already. And then just creating that relationship and having those meetings, like that is invaluable to me. Like the relationship we have with your company now, and just how much of a help our coach has been is just so great for me. And then another thing is just like we've said a lot is just the emotional um journey that I've been on, and just like how much more confident I feel about our finances, and that like even in our relationship and how we can handle, you know, unexpected expenses and the expected ones. Like they just feel like I just feel so much more confidence going into things, and like now it kind of feels like sky's the limit just where we're at financially right now, and we're just excited for that. Like life feels exciting, and I don't know many people in our stage of life that necessarily feel that like amount of peace. I mean, we probably do have friends and people around us that do, but like you said, it's just like this personal thing where we feel a lot of like calm and peace about our finances, and it's just, I mean, not many people can say that, and that's just really cool for me.
Love it. Kyle,
Yeah.
what would you say?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the most valuable part, is that feeling at the end, like just recognizing that we know how to reach our goals and that we can have the life that we want to have. I think there's a lot of messaging out in the world that's just like, well, times have changed. Everyone's just gonna have to have a worse off life, than previous generations. So, yeah, and it's easy to kind of believe that. There's a lot of evidence for that type of thinking. Um, and there's a lot, I think finances have gotten more complicated over time. Like, I learned a lot of personal finance from my parents, and a lot of the things I learned are like the principles are sound, and they can be applied, but the application is just really different. It's evolved, and
Like balancing a checkbook.
yeah,
Right?
Yes, right.
and like getting your bank statement in the mail.
Filing it away.
Slightly different, but
the principles.
the principles are there, and like you really can make wise financial decisions, and kind of reduce the amount of stress and anxiety by having a system, and checking in periodically and making sure you're on the same page. And I think that, like, I anticipate us implementing these, principles we've learned for the rest of our lives, and just continuing to progress along the roadmap, and that makes me like, I'm a very forward thinking person, so it makes me like a lot less worried and concerned
Mhm.
about the future because I know that we'll get there when we need to get there. And so then we can just enjoy where we're at right now. And it's been way more enjoyable, like this time around, having a baby and having that peace with finances. I feel like I've enjoyed this time in my life more. And I really appreciate that because having a child is like not something that you do, over and over again. And this season of life will end. And I'm grateful that I feel good about things now.
Mm. Wow, I love that. I like feel the peace just hearing your voice. Like if I could sum up financial peace, it's that, what
Yeah.
you guys just said, because that like hope for the future, but not this race feeling or anxiety around it. Just keep on keeping on. We'll keep our system running. We'll keep doing the things we need to do. And we know it's going to carry us, but we also are enjoying everything now. It doesn't mean we're scrimping and scraping and feeling stressed now in order to make the future work, but finding that sweet spot between the two is like, to me, what that financial piece really looks like. So
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for sharing, taking the time to give me so much juice and learn so much from you guys. And I'm just so excited to see where life takes you and your family. So thanks again.